Good evening, viewers. There's a bit of a bad news. We were all hoping that we could be done with one part of our tax burden, one part of our burden when it comes to our obligations to the government. That the government would finally manage to sell Air India. That one cash-guzzling airline, a national carrier, pride of our country, yes, but also the airline that runs into losses year after year, that runs on taxpayers' money, on your money and my money, and has not been able to make any money in at least 10 to 12 years. The government wanted to sell it off to a private airline, bring fresh investors on board so that the burden of taxpayers would come down, the burden on the government would come down. Unfortunately, there are no takers for the Maharaja tonight. None at all. The government changed its sales pitch. The government extended the deadline for bids, but no bids came. There were initially quite a few airlines, investors who showed interest, some domestic like Indigo, some international, but nothing worked out. None of them even bothered to send an expression of interest to buy Air India. That is how pathetic the state of affairs are at these airlines. Year after year, it is unable to turn around, it is unable to make any profits, and it just goes on sucking more and more taxpayers' money. The government has now tweeted accepting the fact that they didn't find any takers and that they will now think about what to do. Tonight we will discuss what is the future of Air India. What should the government do? What are its options? Should it completely sell it off 100% to a private airline if anybody is interested? Or should it just shut it down? For how long will you, the citizen, carry the burden of the Maharaja? That's the big debate tonight.
Known as the Maharaja of the Skies, Air India, the monopoly airline operated by the Government of India, has no takers. Debt-laden Air India has failed to attract any bids during the process of auctioning of the airline, which was up for sale. The Ministry of Civil Aviation in a tweet said that they had received no response for the expression of interest for disinvestment of the airline.
One of Narendra Modi government's boldest reforms, privatization of Air India, has crash-landed. Not a single taker. Today was a deadline for the expression of interest, which is a non-binding stage. The government thought that it was going to be flooded with airlines actually evincing interest because it's a non-binding stage. It's literally a no-brainer. You participate in this and get you get entry into the next stage, which is due diligence, get access to data, etc. But not a single carrier. I'll let the viewer decide if they think this was a decision taken together by the airlines to skip the EOI stage or whether it was decided individually.
So now, the government is going to reconsider making some changes in the terms and conditions of the deal, which was the reason for players stepping away from it. This only goes to show the impact of private players on the government-run air service. Well, all said and done, should the government now consider shutting down the airline or go ahead with alternative plans? The debate begins.
Let's say good evening to our guest then. Gaurav Vallabh, National Spokesperson for the Congress Party. Vipul Saxena, an aviation expert, joining us this evening. Ashwini Kakkar, Vice President for Mercury Travels, also with us in our Mumbai studios, along with Ravi Srivastava, also an oil and gas aviation expert and consumer activist. Dinakar Lanka, spokesperson for the TDP. I'll also have Shaina NC representing the BJP. Let me go across to our experts first and ask them, and I broadly want to address a few points. Firstly, what does this mean for Air India? Can the government really find a taker? What will we have to do to get somebody interested in buying a national carrier? Or is it just time to shut it down? Ravi Srivastava, let me start with you.
You rightly said it, Tanvi, that this is almost appears to be end of the road for Maharaja, because The airline has been guzzling the taxpayers' money for last 10 or 15 years in the known history, and it has already accumulated debt of approximately 54,000 crores. Now, only thing I wish is that the government can just devise somehow, instead of selling the 76% which they have offered and with some terms and conditions, instead if they try to sell it lock, stock and barrel completely with all its parking lots and all routes and everything, probably they may find a taker for this. But under the given circumstances, I think it is not a lucrative deal anymore for any of the buyers. Rightly you said it. Indigo had come forward and Jet Airways also had shown having some interest in it. But the fact remains that final day, today at 5 o'clock, it stands that there are no takers for Maharaja at all. Now, the point is that airline had not been efficient as well. And it has been rigged with the corruption, inefficiency, incompetitiveness for quite some time. The airline's 27,000 employees itself is a big liability for a new taker. Apart from that, the per aircraft, the number of employees are the highest for any airline throughout the world. It is such a mess up situation which has been created that the number of, its inefficiency is just unparalleled. And as you know, the 40% operating cost of any airline is a aviation turbine fuel, the fuel which is uses. Now with the current rate of fuel, the current weakening rupee, it is becoming very, very difficult that you will really find any taker for Maharaja in the near future. So I think only way out is that the government either sells it 100% lock stock, or the leftover will be that they have to sell it in the parts, the various businesses, the various verticals to different buyers and make some money out of it.
Well, Ravi Srivastava, in FY12, the loss for the airline was 5,800 crores, a little bit here and there. It came down the next year to about 4,000 crores. But every year subsequently, we've seen every year this airline loses 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 crore rupees. Like everybody is pointing out, its debt stands at 50,000 crore rupees. In 2012, the then UPA government decided to bail out our national carrier. Made a huge plan to save this airline from sinking further, from going bankrupt, and they decided for the next 5 years, we will keep putting in thousands of crores of money just to keep it going. Now, I want to understand today, is it really worth it? Hasn't the message come in clear from the rest of the world, really, that this airline is worth nothing? Ashwini Kakkar.
See, basically, I think the government has taken a very bold stand in trying to sell the airline. Now, clearly, there are some issues which every potential buyer is wary of. For example, the huge debt. If the debt is around 54,000 crores or possibly at this point in time even above 55,000 crores, then that debt needs to be pared down and only the aircraft related debt needs to be carried forward into the new buyer's ambit. So that is one of the crucial conditions that every single buyer will be looking for. The second thing is, does the government really need to have a 75% stake? Does the government really need to have a 25% stake? I think, they should be willing to, either sell the whole airline or, at best keep 10% stake if they want to. And equally, they should not demand board positions. I think this board position stuff is not required. And equally, I think they should allow the employer, the new buyer, a free hand to deal with the employees, because there are past perks of the employees, like every employee gets multiple free tickets, their parents get free tickets, their children get free tickets, also. So all those things need to be dealt with. And similarly, foreign airlines must be allowed 49% or 51% participation in the airline, so that two airlines can come together and create the right kind of partnership, because Air India has a lot of good things also going for it. It has, for example, some of the best routes. It has some of the best slots in the world. It also has, decent aircraft. It has a national carrier status and so on and so forth. So there are many positives as well. And if these positives are presented well, if the debt is pared down, if the buyer is given a free hand to run the airline, then I think this is the biggest airline market in the world, which has consistently shown 23% year-on-year growth at the domestic level and about 14% year-on-year growth at the international level. So I think there is great merit, and other airlines have shown us. You know, Air France has shown us how it is to be done. Earlier days, Lufthansa had shown us how it is to be done.
But like you pointed out, Mr. Kakkar, Mr. Kakkar, the fact is that here the government wants to have complete control. You know, not only do they want to hold 24% stake, they also want, access to the board. They want to have a say in the way things are done. They also want to ensure that the employees continue to be on board, so that this employee cost is also there. The fact of the matter is that a lot of people thought that there will be buyers, there will be interested parties, but nobody has come forth. Now, what do we do? Are the taxpayers supposed to just continue to bear this burden year after year? You know, is it not enough that we are already paying such high taxes on fuel that now we also have to bear an airline that can't make money, that can't turn around, nobody is interested in buying it. So my only point of contention here is what should be done, and if the government cannot find a buyer, should we just shut it down? Let me take that across to Shayana NC and ask her, what's the plan, Shayana NC? Government was hoping to get several thousand crore rupees by the end of this year from this sale, and that's not happening.
Firstly, let me please say that Air India is clearly India's pride. So it's not as if this is some downright desperate sale where the government is only interested in selling and liquidating. However, it is part of Modi ji's plan to divest assets and to keep the fiscal deficit at 3.3% of GDP, a goal that has come under pressure but always has a lot of benefits to give to other segments of society, whether it's welfare of farmers, whether it's the downtrodden. I think that needs to be considered too. So let's look at this scenario in totality. I think Mr. Ashwini Kakkar said it very well, that Air India was known for being an airline that was doing well at a certain stage, was completely malhandled or mishandled, if you would want to say, but had the best connectivity. So what we are reaching out to people is that please think of this as a great investment for you, but if not, and if there are no takers in a particular market, then we need to divide the assets and sell. But there is a certain consideration that if there is a huge debt, it really makes no sense to keep on talking about a national carrier if we are unable to do justice to the common citizen who is looking at what is happening with the mismanagement of this large conglomerate.
So what are you saying?
So
are you saying that the government is now ready to break it up into parts and then sell it?
Tanvi, can I come in?
Yes, Mr. Srivastava, I'll come to you in just a bit.
Well, that's for Mr. Jayant Sinha and the Civil Aviation Department to decide. Of course, the Prime Minister will be privy to it. But right now, I think we need to just understand that when you put this highlight and this tagline that all attempts to sell Air India fail, we mustn't view it like that. We have to understand what is the history, what is the baggage, but what are the plus points and what are the advantages to an investor.
What you're telling me, this pitch that you're making to me is not going to help, China, because I am not sitting here to buy the airline. You know, if you have a pitch of the great, the positives and the negatives, and about the airline being nation's pride and about the connectivity and its fleet, and I agree to those points. Of course, it has a strong, fleet asset. Of course, it has great routes with it, and all of that will be factored in. But obviously, what you've put out there is not lucrative enough for anybody to come in and buy at this point of time. Before I go to our other panelists, Mr. Srivastava, you wanted to make a point.
I just want to add on it that this airline has been misused and exploited by the government, by the politicians en masse. And not from today. It is happening for last 15 or 20 years. Whether it is a complimentary upgradation, whether it is a free ticket, whether it is a delay for the departure of the airline, they have used it as if it is their personal carrier. To that extent, the politicians have exploited it. The result is that their efficiency has creeped in so much that the airline is not able to come out of that red. And the red has become so much that no buyer will take it. You have put up EY, Rothschild, such consultants over there. I think positives and negatives everybody knows. Those who are in business, they know it very well. Even there was a director who had stolen the artifacts from Air India office in Delhi. To that extent, the airline is rigged with the corruption, and it is down up to the lowest level in the airline. Although I would admit that in last 5 years, some good administrators have been put over there and they have tried to make some difference, and that is why the losses, if you see last 5 or 6 years, have been almost in a shape, in a line. It has not deteriorated further. But I think the airline has already sunk so much that it is very difficult to revive it now.
The attempts have been made, and I am not an expert into what they have actually done internally to change. So perhaps they have done something that has worked. But let's also not forget, Mr. Srivastava, that the crude has also helped the airline, like every other airline, significantly in the last couple of years. That is also, by the way, going to go away now, the way things are panning out. But a very important point that you've raised, and let me take that across to the Congress representative, Mr. Gaurav Vallabh. Who is responsible for the state of affairs today, that the airline is in such a bad shape, nobody even wants to touch it? Is it because of the politicians?
Tanvi, I would like to start on a very light note that Richard Branson once mentioned that if you want to be a millionaire, start the airline business, provided before that you should be a billionaire. So that is nothing to do with our debate, but let me start with this. See, I will give you research and I will give you the valuation perspective of Air India and why this government had failed to attract the investors, and there are reasons. They have to introspect on that, and I will give you one by one. I had done myself a lot of research in this particular sector. See, airport transport service sector output multiplier in our country is 1.8. What does it convey? What does it mean? That it indicates that if you are putting an extra unit of output, means if you are putting a 1 rupee of an output in the air transportation sector, it will induce rupees 1.8 as a value addition. So this sector itself is growing in the world. This is the one of the fastest growing sector, especially for India. Now what is happening? See, government came out with a proposal that they will disinvest Air India. Then Air India Express, which is in a profit, by the way, for your viewers, Air India Express is in a profit, and one AirSets, which is a subsidiary of the Air India. Now, we had 3 issues, and because of this particular scheme got collapsed. First reason was that there was whole lot of confusion. The RSS chief said, we can sell only to the domestic player, no foreign player can come. So foreign players had a doubt that if we will come, Nagpur says, no, you can't come, then we have to go out. So because of that, foreign players are out. Domestic players are having a view that the growth in this sector is such a big that they themselves can grow. And I will give you the reason. 76% is the stakes for the domestic player. If you are a foreign player, stakes is 49%. I am asking, is there any serious foreign player who will come with a big investment of 49% where he is not having majority rights also? And mind it, this is an election year. Next year the new government will come, so there will be no prudent investor who is going to come with such a big money. First point. Second point, Air India's net assets value is in negative. So Air India's only assets are intangibles. Intangibles are in the form of route permits and the connectivity and the charges. So how to value parking lots. So how to value that parking lots is a highly subjective. Government is not
No, we
aware
have a lot
of
of
this thing.
experts.
They hurriedly
We have a lot of
announce the scheme.
experts. Irrespective of which government is there, enough experts out there to do that. Yes, but you're taking far too long, Mr. Vallabh. Very quickly. Everybody knows these pointers. Yes, go ahead. Finish your point. Yeah.
That is that is the problem. And third point, 11,000 plus permanent employees,
Yes.
the retirement liability, the calculation of that is big, and this is the election year. See, problem is that the whole lot of confusion which was created between Swadeshi Jagran Manch, RSS,
Okay.
BJP.
Whole lot of
BJP says
confusion.
that we will disinvest.
Not to
SDM says
forget,
we don't want.
not to
So is
forget
there
that some of your
any
newly
active
found
investor
friends
who
in
may
political
completely
circles, not to forget
Let
that
me
some of
please
your
come
newly
in.
found friends in political circles in this united opposition have also opposed
Let me
this.
please come in.
Yes, China NC, if you will just allow me to go across to Mr. Vipul Saxena, he has not spoken yet, and then you can respond to all of their comments together. So if you can just hold on for one more minute, Mr. Saxena is also there. Mr. Saxena, you've heard everybody, and of course I'll go across to Mr. Lanka after that, but Vipul Saxena, do you agree with what the Congress spokesperson is saying? Is that why we failed to get any interest? Is there still scope to get a buyer, or should we just shut it down?
I heard everybody almost except the TDP member, but from beginning I have been opposing this sale attempt by the government for two simple reasons. That one is that it is a pride of India. Second thing, Air India plays very crucial role in the time of crisis. Thirdly, in the last 3 years, if you see financials which have been shown in the EOI of Air India, it is showing almost the double EBITDA gain, which has started from minus 9%, which was in 2012. Now it is plus 11%. So that means double EBITDA this Air India's gain because of the Modi government's put into a lot of efforts, and he changed Mr. Ashwini Lohani as CMD, who really turned on the company. So with this kind of trend, I never support the sale of this Air India, and especially when there are about 36% employees are going to retire in the next 5 years. Air India are going to yet to get so many new aircrafts. Most of the aircrafts are very young age. So this total business model, if I look at it, it's a very, very profitable business model.
Yes. Mr. Saxena, if I had to ask you, how much longer would it have taken for Air India to turn around? What would you tell me? At the end of the day, if the citizens of this country have to pay 5,000 crore rupees just to keep an airline alive, which for most of it is for the luxury and privileges of the elected netas, how many more years would the citizens have to do it?
See, I would suggest that firstly that there has to be a very professional management control which has to be given to this Air India. Second thing, there should be absolute autonomy. Today Air India is run by the ministry. Okay, it has to be given total autonomy. Then if government can give a lot of tax holidays to various other industry, private industry, why can't they give it to the Air India for 5 years, zero VAT, zero taxation, so that they can come up to the profit side, and thereafter, I'm not saying you waive off the tax, you defer these taxes for 5 years and let Air India be turned around by the new management with the independence of their operations.
Okay, let me take those points across. Let me take those points across. China MC, please respond, and then I'll go across to Dinakar Lanka. But please respond to what Vipul Saxena has said, and also before that, of course, what Gaurav Vallabh said.
Firstly, to Gauravji, I want to say, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. The RSS only made a comment saying that this is our national carrier and we would hope that it continues in Indian hands. This is a sentiment of nationalism. This is not a certain kind of diktat. So please, for you, let me please say that the Modi government, when they announced the plan in March, the idea was to divest about a 76% stake of Air India, and obviously to offload about $5.1 billion of its debt. Now this is a huge number. I think you need to give the courage of conviction credit to Modi ji, because he has actually taken a decision which may be very heavy on heart and sentiment, where he has said if there is this kind of debt, we need to come up with a conclusive solution, and it's time for the future.
You know, the country would give some credit to whoever decides. The country will give credit to whoever decides, only if there is an impact on ground. We can't start giving credit for sentiments now, Shahana NC, when it comes to governance.
Tanvi, can I ask a small question to her? Then what kind of nationalism? What kind of nationalism is this?
How difficult is it to take this kind of a decision?
To Ministry of Defence and the PMO and the Foreign Ministry has not been paid as of April of this year. What kind of nationalism is this? You want to exploit the national exchequer in the name of nationalism? The PMO itself has not paid 128 crore, which is pending for the airline. What kind of nationalism is this? How will you allow to survive the airline? Can you do it to a private airline? You are purposely.
They will not allow you to enter. See what happened, Tanvi.
What are you talking?
The issue,
If
try to
a
understand the
private
issue.
airline is debt-ridden, if a private airline is debt-ridden, is there no need to get rid of that debt, or should the debt just be further added because you feel it's a public sentiment to continue the way we're functioning?
What business government
we are
has
talking
got
on two
to
fundamental
treat the
issues
airline
here.
as a domestic?
You're not understanding the point. You're not understanding his point, Shahana NC. He is asking you what business does the government or any MP, any neta in our country have to treat Air India like it's his personal airline? What about the pending payments that are due from various ministries of the government? When a national airline, the pride of our country, is sinking day by day, why are you guys not paying out what is the due?
Asking me this question when Air India's debt. How can you even be asking me this question when we all know that Air India's debt and
because
debt
you are representing the ruling party.
PMO
had not paid Air India dues.
What is the connection?
100 crore.
1 minute, gentlemen, 1 minute, 1 minute.
And you are talking here.
1 minute, 1 minute. Mr. Vallabh, 1 minute. Let her finish your point.
Decision which is in the best interest
So
of
that means that individual ministries will not pay up. That means individual ministries will not pay their bills.
Please
That
don't
means
do this.
that means individual
Allow
ministries
me
won't
to
pay their bills.
answer.
What are you saying? Yes,
If
go ahead.
you have, what are you saying? How can you even be questioning me when the maximum losses incurred by Air India were during the UPA tenure? We know these freebies and subsidies and all kinds of perks that were given during Mr. Praful Patel as Civil Aviation Minister, which made Air India bleed. If at all our government has come to the rescue to say why should we have these $5 billion debt, we should get rid of it, we should offload 70%.
Okay, 1 minute. Mr. Dinakar Lanka has been patiently waiting by. I am going to go across to him on this point. Mr. Dinakar Lanka, do you agree?
Shahana, please.
Do you agree or not that the plight and the bad position, the abysmal state of affairs at Air India is also because of the way politicians, ministries, elected representatives and where successive governments have treated and handled this airline? Who is to blame? Isn't it the netas of our country?
Under the existing situation, it is not good to think towards politics. It is purely economics. It requires to be considered. Because disinvestment is the policy is not new phenomenon. It for past 20 years it happening irrespective of the government. It is. I think in UPA government also they tried their level best to come out from these losses by means of disinvestment. Of course, it is the process. Government is a continuous process. The present existing government also trying very hard for the last 4 years.
UP looted Air India all throughout 10 years.
Please, hello. I patiently waited. I did
all profitable international routes.
The previous government looted taxpayers' money, and you're asking us for answers when we are coming up with conclusive solutions.
Please wait for a few minutes. Please wait for a few minutes. It is the continuous process. It is happening. But one thing is important. When you are talking about national pride, there is some kind of restructure plan has been given during the UPA government itself. It get failed. But this NDA government also get failed to continue that restructuring plan. Control and Auditor General has raised 6 points, very important points that should be kept into consideration. Number one, less income in passenger revenue. Almost all 20 to 25% of forecasted revenue was shortfall in Air India. And then low monetization of assets. Almost of 12 assets are in existence which can be monetized immediately. But out of which 5 only can be monetized by the Air India. Non-availability of proper aircraft. It is the government failure. As far as A320 aircrafts which required urgently, but as per the requirement it was not delivered due to delay in decision making by the government of India. So that also made very big impact on revenue. Mismanagement and granting bilateral
you do realize that your party may not be part of the government now, but it was until very, very recently. When the thought process of putting Air India out there on the block was concerned, your party leader was the aviation minister. Can you tell us during his tenure what did he do to improve the situation at Air India? Private airlines like SpiceJet have turned around within a couple of years. We've not managed to do that with Air India. Why?
Can I tell? No, it is absolutely wrong. 30 years accumulated losses. Within 4 years, if you want to clear up everything, it's not possible. 30 years of accumulation losses, almost all 35,000.
I am not talking about the accumulated losses. Forget the accumulated losses. Those are all notional things. No, Mr. Lanka. Those are all very notional things. They go in the CA's books. They don't matter to an actual Aam Aadmi. I'm asking you. The annual loss is the same between 3,000 and 5,000 crore rupees. Every year it's the same.
If you talk about Aam Aadmi, these losses will you transfer taxpayer pocket from the taxpayer pocket? It is a need of our to take disinvestment of Air India because of these problems, especially if you consider the today's operation. What happened? Expression of interest was disapproved due to one of the main point is as per the plan, Air India and Air India Express will retain 24,756 crore rupees excluding net current liabilities after sale. How can come forward the buyer? These kind of things which
nobody wants to come forward. Nobody wants to come forward at this current situation.
Yes. That's why.
Yes, Mr. Vallabh.
Proposal should be in realistic way. Proposal should be in realistic way.
Mr. Vallabh, will your party take responsibility for the kind of mess Air India is in today? In your 10 years of tenure, you couldn't do a single thing to improve the plight of affairs for Air India, except, of course, add to the burden of the taxpayers with the bailout plan that you came out in 2012.
Let me answer one by one. My friend from BJP, she is not aware. Today also in all newspapers, Swadeshi Jagran Manch had categorically opposed that Air India.
Answer my question, Mr. Vallabh. Answer my question.
I am coming.
No, answer my question now. You evaded my question the last time.
I will answer. If you will not answer, then let me answer second point, Tanvi. From 2004 till date, the Air India share in the pie, when we left the power, it was 20%. Today it is 13% because of misgovernance in Air India under their regime. Third point, because of our bailout package which you had mentioned just now, because of that only, because of renovation, because of the new aircrafts into the system, for last 3 years, Air India is showing operating profits. You are not aware of this. Profit after tax is lost, but operationally
they are in a profit. So what you announced in 2012 is the operating profit that they are getting today, but you will not take onus for the mess that you created in 10 years.
Tanvi, I am asking you. Tanvi, I am asking you.
Don't fool people like this. You put the burden of 60,000 crore rupees. Every single MP treats Air India like it's their private airline. You ask the airline.
You will not allow me to speak. I can speak.
No, you made your point.
If you will not allow me, how I can?
You made your point. What else do you want to say?
I am saying operationally profit. See, that's
you want to take credit for the operational profit today.
How it is? With
Otherwise, how it will come? I am asking you. Otherwise, how will it will come? If you are having aircraft, if you are going to replace the aircraft, then only operational profit will come.
7,200 employees is enough. Whereas 12,000 employees are operating, how can you get profit? How can you get profit?
That's what I am saying. CAG data I am sharing.
There are two very important points.
I am also having that data.
There are two very important points I want to make.
Aviation experts
It is over cost running.
Last point.
High
Last point. Quickly, last point.
Employment cost is high side. Passenger to employee services cost is high side.
Mr. Lanka, let him finish his point. Let him finish his point.
Negatively the airlines.
What is the last point? Yes, Mr. Vallabh, quickly.
The last point is very simple. See, the national pride of the nation, we all are proud, and still we are proud.
You are all just giving us this rhetoric, sir. If you thought Air India was the national pride, you would have shown the respect.
They are not able to get the buyer. They are not able to get the buyer because the scheme was finalized.
Because of the mess that you created.
Tanvi, what was the mess?
You
we
are going to
renovated.
take the...
We replaced the aircrafts. We replaced the aircrafts. We renovated the aircraft. You are saying mess was there, and
yes,
their result
20%
to 13% market share got reduced.
Ashwini Kakkar, do you buy this argument?
My earnest request to everybody is, first of all, let us not politicize the situation. Secondly, let's not look at the past. Thirdly, let's put India before Air India and look forward. Now, what I have to say is, a lot of airlines have evaluated this company, at a domestic level. The Tatas, Vistara, Indigo, Jet, all have been looking at this company. Internationally, Singapore Airlines, Qatar, and Air France have also been looking at this company, but clearly the debt is unsustainable. Secondly, the high ownership of the government and board positions and those kind of things are actually hindering the sale. So I think we should come up with a revised policy where all these things are taken care of, at least for the purposes of this sale. If you compare the Indian market with the Chinese market, there are 400 aircraft flying in the Indian market today, 400 and odd, and in the Chinese market, profitably 6,000 aircraft are flying today. So this is a big market. This easily can be achieved, but we just need to make sure that the things are put in the right perspective, and then the sale is attempted one more time, especially when the fuel prices are at a reasonable level and not at $200 a barrel. I think the chances are very good that the sale may go through.
Okay, Vipul Saxena wanted to make a point. Yes.
I too.
Yeah. See, I got 2 points. I'm sure on point number 1, all the panelists will agree that the state of Air India today is purely because of mismanagement. There is nothing wrong with the business model. It was purely because of mismanagement and intervention of government and a lot of freebies which have been given to the various category of people. So the government decides to go in for privatization. Now, what will the corporate do? What will corporate do? They will identify the stress area and de-stress those areas. So if a private company can do it, why cannot government have an efficient management and do the same thing and get Air India into profit? My point is that, so that you retain your national pride, you retain your national carrier, and also have international standard aviation services. Especially when for last 3 years airlines making profit. Yes. This year in 2017 they made 298 crore profit, double than last year. So I don't see currently airline going through a severe stress. Yes, there is a stress. For that, government can come out of some kind of holidays for few years and have a proper professional management to handle this and relieve these airlines from any kind of interference by Minister of Civil Aviation or Government of India.
So
let me tell you,
if these are done, in next 5 years, Air India will be more profitable. Go away. May I say something here? You all may hope that they bring down the government stake or at least government presence on the board, that the government interference goes away. But it will not. And for one simple reason. The netas of our country have been spoilt by the citizens for far too long. They, in their minds, in their heads, Air India is their private airline, their private airline. They always want to have the benefit of free trips, aircrafts waiting for them to jump the queues, for them to have VVIP treatment, for them to have special treatment at their beck and call, for them and their families. And they will not give it up. No private airline, no bidder who comes in, no investor savior who comes in is going to accept that fact, and they know it very well. There is no political will because there no party will do this.
Again, we are coming back
I agree with you. Tanvi, I agree with you. I am saying I agree with you.
Air India is not in loss because of the business model. It is because of political will.
Exactly.
To sell it lock, stock and barrel.
Which is what I'm saying, Ravi Srivastava. They will never agree to do that because then who's going to take care of our netas? That's the whole point. Now let me go across to our viewers. Shiv Subramanian on the phone.
Problem is
Shiv Subramanian on the phone line from Chennai. Let me quickly go across to a couple of our callers. Please, we'll come back. Yes, Mr. Subramanian, go ahead, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Tanvi. The problem is the Congress spokesperson doesn't understand or doesn't want to say that during his time, Praful Patel went and ordered for 111 aircrafts and, paying 70,000 crores as a leasing
Absolutely.
Which at
That's
that time
the main problem.
At that time, actually, the aviation industry was in a turbulent kind of a situation.
Very good
They didn't
point.
have to really go for it. They were actually on a merger issue, and the Air India
This is a very valid point.
Air India and Indian Airlines was not getting merged because of the workers' issues. And these people went ahead and ordered because they wanted to make money. Their daughters wanted to go abroad, have a nice time in the account of somebody else. And beyond that, actually, all the best slots which they had, the profit-making routes and the schedules that they had, they actually handed over back to those airlines. So today, Emirates, etc., are enjoying those routes, which we have lost out. It's not the customer the passenger who's unhappy.
Absolutely.
Most passengers, if you ask down, he will tell you that it's one of the best airlines because he's got a extremely good seat pitch, extremely good aircraft. But the biggest problem is that most of the politicians, thanks to UPA, they have been using this as a vote bank because whatever asked for, whether the pilots go for a strike or the staff go on a strike or the ground staff go on a strike, they will support them. If you go back to Mumbai and see, if the passenger wants to go and say something to somebody, he will not be entertained because they generally believe that this is their home, the turf for politicians to play games. Nobody turns up on time.
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Subramaniam. Right. And, it shows in the attitude as well. And I agree with you there. And I just want to tell you, Mr. Subramaniam, we also tried to get a representative of the NCP. Nobody wanted to come on this topic. I want to make it very clear. They knew that some very tough questions would have been asked of them. Nobody wanted to join a debate from that party.
Tanvi, you see the complete...
Mr. Saxena, one more minute, please.
Can I just add a point?
Sophie on the phone line. We had lost the connection with her. Sophie on the phone line from Bengaluru. Shanansi, I will come back to you. Sophie, good evening. Go ahead, please.
Good evening.
Yes.
I want to tell you the corruption of the ground staff of Air India.
Okay, go ahead. We can hear you.
Good evening. Hello.
We can hear you, Sophie.
Just
mute the TV and go ahead.
The Air India ground staff.
Yeah.
It happened way back in 1977. We were traveling. We had to travel from Bombay to Bahrain in August 1977, and we had confirmed tickets. And then they cancelled our tickets because earlier there was 48 hours some rebooking. And we couldn't do just because of 2 hours delay. They cancelled our tickets. And when we went to the airport, we went at midnight. The flight was at 6 o'clock. They were asking for very heavy bribes. We were 4, 2 of us and our 2 children. Very heavy bribe. And in the end, we were desperate to get the seats because we had to join the work.
Yes.
Ministry of Health. So we paid the bribe. And then about 10 or 12, there was a big crowd wanting to go, and they took about 10 to 12 of us in a bus, and they took us to the aircraft.
Yes, I get your point, Sophie. A lot of people have had experiences, not just with Air India, with a lot of other airlines as well. But much is said about Air India's services even today. Last word to Shana NC. Shana NC, yes. you wanted to respond to what our other panelists were saying.
Before that, one word.
I want 5 seconds.
Can I tell one word?
I want 5 seconds.
Yes, but let us speak. Let us speak. Very quickly, we'll go across the whole panel. Yes. Shaina.
Yeah. Problem is with both the national
so basically,
parties.
during the UPA tenure,
each other disagree with the one to other. This is the problem. When the UPA is in power, BJP disagree. When BJP is in power, UPA is disagree. In the same matter, it is the problem. So,
sir, you made your point now. Please let me answer.
As an economic policy, in that perspective only we think.
Okay. Yes, Shaina.
Tanvi, can I?
So I just want to make a limited point. That one, during the UPA tenure, we know the way Air India went into the doldrums. We know that certain ministers ordered fleets of airlines close to the tune of 1,000 aircrafts, which were unnecessary for a company that was already embedded in debt. So the damage was done during the UPA term.
No. We are about 50 aircraft.
We know that there were tenders eventually.
That is the problem of liars.
The initial plan.
There was nothing related to 1,000 aircraft,
I'm saying the initial plan of a suggestion of 1,000 and then they ended up getting 100. The point is this, that the damage was done during the UPA's corrupt rule.
All these allegations, it would have been great.
It would have been undo all their damage and undo all their debt. And that can only happen if we disconnect the sentiment from the actual reality and put that money to good use.
Which money?
Tanvi, can I react? Can I react, Tanvi, in 5 seconds?
Yes, 5 seconds.
The Air India, I am not saying that Air India was in profit when UPA was in power. I am not, because I am having data. I can't deny, I am not a liar. But I am saying the situation which had reached, it is only because of BJP and the way, it's not that
I don't have time for this blame game. It would have been great had both of you actually owned up to the mess that your individual governments made out of this. So I'm completely out of time, Mr. Vallabh, but you should have had the strength to admit what a mess it was during your tenure. Who decided to merge the two airlines? Who decided to go ahead and order those aircrafts? Who led the airline to the point of no return? For the BJP to now turn around and say it happened during their tenure and make allegations of any wrongdoing or scam, well, you've been here for 4 years. What have you investigated? Where is the punishment for that? Where is the action in that? Nothing. We should at least appreciate that this government decided that they must disinvest. They must sell, privatize, try and save this airline and reduce the burden of the taxpayer. And I do appreciate that. Unfortunately, Air India is in such a bad state of affairs that at the way things stand right now, and the government's offer has not cut any ice with any interested party. I'm sorry to say this was brought up during the debate about national pride. But why should I be proud of an airline? I do not want to use this blind nationalism rhetoric that is given to us to gloss over the failures of successive governments in our country when it comes to Air India. The problem today is that the government has failed to run a business. Successive governments have failed to run a business, and they should have exited this business a long, long time ago. Today, we could not get a fair valuation done, and there is no bidder for Air India. What this will do is that someday some businessman will stand up and take this public asset, take our Indian asset away for peanuts. And we will be made to believe then that there was no other option. If we wake up today and ask the right questions, maybe someday, just maybe someday, we will be proud of the airline. If you choose to be. For those who don't care about parochial pride, there will be some money to contend with for the public exchequer. For now, if you want me to be proud of a company that has no takers, and if you want me to continue footing the bill for no fault of mine, sorry, I am not going to accept that. The mess that has been made has been because of successive governments. Why should you and I, the citizen, pay for that? Thank you so much for joining us tonight.